And Deborah, please take it away.
Hey, well, thank you, everyone. And today we're going to be talking about disruptionware. And if you're like me, I'm sure you want to stay up to date on the latest, hacks and trends and things like that. And several articles came out in early 2020 on disruptionware. And I was like, oh, what's this? I want to know what this is. So definitely, we're going to get into what it is and break it down, talk more about it. So the first thing I want to do is introduce myself. I have over 20 years of experience in information security. And when I was at Cisco, I helped found, they said it was okay for me to say I was the founder, but John Hopkins University Cryptographic Knowledge Base. But it was basically a partnership between Cisco, because I worked at Cisco, and Johns Hopkins. And it's a great resource, so I definitely want to point it out. You can go there and you can say, oh, what am I supposed to be using? Is it TLS 1.2? What sort of ciphers, things like that. They have good information. It's also community based, so if you actually wanted to get involved and write articles or something, you can get in touch with me and we can add you to the calls and things like that. But there are students at Johns Hopkins that are being paid to work on it, and it's just a really good resource. The other thing is in 2019, it was pretty cool. I was written up in this book, Women Know Cyber, so I wanted to point that out. Now, hacking is big business. I'm sure this isn't a surprise to anybody that's on this call. What might be a surprise is how much money that it's going to cost. So cybercrime damages, it's projected will cost $6 trillion annually starting in 2021. So, and you see this in the headlines all the time, who's been hacked and everything like that. It's not going away. And it's worse now with COVID. So it's easy. There's all these hacker tools. Um, Everybody on this call hopefully is a white hat hacker. There are a lot of white hat hacker tools that are released and they're used by the black hat hackers. I was just listening to Security Now today, and they were talking about, there was somebody that had written one of these tools and he said, oh, I'm so sad, these are being used, by these hackers. But just it's part of what it is. So it's anonymous, it's easy, these tools, either on the regular web you can get them or on the dark web. You can also pay somebody. There's ransomware as a service, and it's, you can pay them in crypto and Bitcoin or whatever. And of course there's nation state. So that's the other thing that we have to look out for. So what exactly is disruptionware? Well, this Institute for Critical Infrastructure and Technology, they actually defined disruptionware and what it is. And they said it's a new category of malware, and essentially it's going to disrupt operations at a particular company organization. So essentially that's what it is. Now, in a nutshell, these are sophisticated attacks, halts an organization's operations, and they're using a combination of known hacker tools. The number one type of disruptionware is ransomware. So that's going to be our main focus today. And one of the big trends going on right now is data exfiltration being used with the ransomware. So we're going to talk more about that. Now, I wanted to give this as an example. This is from a while back. This was 2012, but this would fall under disruptionware. So it was a wiper attack where 35,000 computers were partially wiped or totally destroyed. It was email phishing. Someone in the IT, on the IT team, opened a scam email, and it was called Shamoon. So one of the big ones that's happened, and this was in July, was the Garmin ransomware attack. And they were down for like a week, and it took them several weeks to actually recover from it. Now, most interesting is it's been reported that they paid about $10 million for the ransom. So what this means is, the hackers are going to have more incentive to do these targeted attacks. So they're looking for companies that are going to be able to pay this ransom. and they're going to make sure that they pay it by exfiltrating their data. Now, in this particular case, they were hit, it was by wasted locker ransomware. The Russian hacking group is known as Evil Corp. I was like, oh, you can't make this up. And it was just a major disruption to their website, to their applications. It was really bad. Now, they're saying publicly there was no indication that customer data was accessed, lost, or stolen. So I thought it was interesting because they said customer data. So we don't know if there was any other data. And it was, major disruption. Now, I thought, okay, I'm going to focus on the Garmin. Well, then this came out. There was a ransomware attack, and this was just a few weeks ago on a major US hospital chain and Universal Health Services. They have 400 facilities across the United States, Puerto Rico, and the United Kingdom. It was so bad they had to move some patients to other hospitals, and they went to all paper. So this is, now we're getting into life and death. And this particular one was Ryuk. Now, there was actually a woman who died because of a ransomware attack. And this was an attack at a German hospital. And what happened is they hadn't patched. It was basically a known vulnerability. This is a Citrix NetScaler vulnerability that came out in early, like January, February timeframe. Gained access to their network. And this person died because they had to transport her to another hospital. And if that wasn't enough, just yesterday, the FBI warned that ransomware is threatening the US healthcare system. And especially in the article went on and talked about, with COVID and everything going on. So this is, really serious. Now, ransomware, the total cost in billions, you can just see the trajectory there. 2021 is going to be 20 billion. So, 2 years after that, you can just see it's going to be hitting at least 25 billion. So it's not going away. And the more companies that pay, the more, we're going to see these attacks. So the top 5 ransomware, it's Maze, Sodinocoby, which is also, you'll hear described as REvil, Ryuk, Tycoon, NetWalker, and of course there are others. These were just ones that the top ones just from the last few weeks. The big news in 2020 is that ransomware is now a data breach. Now, of course, not all ransomware, but these ransomware gangs, the nation state attacks, they've changed, and this is what really makes us fall under this disruptionware, because it's more sophisticated attacks. They are guaranteeing that they're going to get paid, because it used to be you just have good backups. Well, that's not the case anymore. So late 2019, early 2020, this came out, and Bleeping Computer, they're an excellent resource for the latest ransomware attacks. Like every single ransomware attack, they'll usually even be mentioned a lot of times in the article, but you can go out to their site. And here you can see there's Broken English. They're actually mentioning 2 different companies here. One was CyrusOne and the other one's the CDH fund. But what they're saying is, hey, it says in case of refusal of payment, the data will either be sold to competitors or laid out in open sources. Essentially, we're going to post it on the dark web. Do not want to pay us, pay 10 times more to the government. So what they're saying is, we don't care if you have good backups. We've got your data and you need to pay us. So pre-2020, this is, typical attack. I mean, the different toolkits and stuff can be different, but essentially 90% of attacks were by email phishing. But we're getting smarter. And it was kind of funny. I was listening to Ira, his keynote, he's saying, you can't rely on the user. And I do think that user, doing the training is good, user awareness, you don't click on that link, but you really need the email filtering program that's going to look at it first. And, I know that's basically what he was saying, because he said the human firewall, that's a bunch of crap, because you can't blame the user. But it's, the email filtering, it's working. And so pre-2020, this was, 90% attacks, email phishing, and actually some of the ransomware is actually delivered in the email. You didn't even have to go out and, didn't even have to go to another site and pull it down. They'd open it up, get encrypted, and then the particular ransomware would encrypt not only the host, but if you have like a backup drive, USB connected to your machine, it'll encrypt that. If you have an online cloud-based backup, it will, any sort of map drive, it will encrypt that. So you definitely want offline backups. And then using RDP and or SMB, it will self-propagate over the network. And, suddenly you have, an infection and all these machines being attacked. So I wanted to talk a little bit about RDP, which is a client server communication protocol. Comes, on your Microsoft workstation servers. What is so important? This is the #1 attack vector right now to break into your network. And it's on port 3389. Now, what the hackers are doing is they're going out to a site such as census.io, which I like to go to this site. It's really great. You could go out there, you could actually put the domain in like for your company, and you can check and see all the machines that are externally exposed. And they'll let you do so many searches a month. It's free to go out there. Actually, the guy who developed this was a grad student under the professor that I've worked with on the Johns Hopkins knowledge base, which was kind of cool. And now this is actually a product. They also have, but again, for researchers, it's free. So you could go out there and do the search and say, hey, what machines, do we know what these machines are? They also have a free tool where you can check for, basically it will check your remote access and make sure it's secured. And that's free also. So what I did in this case is I went out and I looked up port 3389 to see what's exposed. Now, when you do the search, it doesn't right then go and like check your domain. What's happened is it slowly, it's checking the internet all the time, basically. So when you do the search, it's actually just going to their database and giving you a report. So you don't have to worry about, oh no, the sensors on my network are going to go off or something like that. It's not like that. So in this case, there's 3.8 million RDP port 3389 that are open. And now it doesn't mean they're all can be attacked. If they have a certificate and a really strong password like 12 characters or greater, then they're secure. But what the hackers are going to do is they're going to look for the ones that don't have TLS, that are just like 8080 and the port's open. So this is what they're doing now. So you want to make sure, well, of course you want to make sure you've got your machines on, especially your edge machines, that they're patched. You want to use strong passwords, multi-factor authentication. We're going back to the basics, basically. You want to block port 3389 at your boundary firewall and limit the administrators who can log in remotely, because by default, all admins have access. Now, SMB server message block is also being used, which is port 445. And so what you want to do with this is you want to disable SMB version 1.0, and you want to use SMB 3.0 and above. Now, one of the things is, the key point is to disable SMB version 1.0, because if they're both enabled, then what can happen is a client can come in and request to connect using the version 1.0, and it can negotiate down, even if you have SMB 3.0 enabled. So, and cryptos can be the same way. You want to block TCP port 445 at the boundary firewall, and also these UDP ports 137, 138, 139. So these are all ways you can secure your SMB. Now, I also found this on the Varonis site. It said you can enable endpoint protection, install a VPN, which please, I would hope everybody on this call is using a VPN if you're remoting in. VLANs to isolate internal network traffic, and use MAC address filtering. Now, in 2020, what they're doing is they're going out to the Census.io or Shodan. They're finding out, oh, what, RDP ports are open, gaining access to the network. Then they're, it's going to take them a while. That they can't just like go in and like start checking, figuring out the network. They got to be really quiet because they don't want to, a bunch of alarms to go off and things like that. So, but they're going to find that data, that PII data. They want to find, human resources data, customer data. If you're a software development firm, your source code, whatever intellectual property that you have that you're going to pay $10 million for. So they're going to exfiltrate that off your network to servers that they have control over. Then they can launch the ransomware attack. They don't have to have a user click on anything. They can just, they're in. They've compromised your Windows server, and it'll begin to self-propagate through your network. Now, there are some forms, depending on what sort of toolkits they use, where they'll actually launch the ransomware, and not like it'll have a timer like 5 days. So it'll be on several computers before it actually encrypts the drive. So, and I don't know if that's what happened with the universal healthcare, but it seemed like it hit them so quickly and it advanced through their network so fast that might have been how that one was actually, the attack was done. So what can you do? Well, number one, you want to have good offline backups. You want to have Defender on your host, so like Windows Defender, CrowdStrike, Tanium, because they will recognize, most of these are known type, they reuse them, they rebundle the same ones. So they would be able to catch it. Like especially if it's deployed and hasn't actually started encrypting any machines. Turn off the machine. So as long as it doesn't have access to your network, wired, or wireless, then it can't self-propagate. Don't use Windows 98, XP, Windows 7. You're probably thinking, who would be using this? This is, what in the world? Because these aren't being patched anymore. But, and I just got the statistic in the last week or two, 10% of traffic going to ZDNet, people are using Windows 7. So a lot of people are still using old software that's not patched. And, we already talked about, blocking these ports at the boundary firewall. There's also legitimate sites like nomoreransom.org and this barkley.com where you could actually get the decryption key. So a lot of these are known, and you can get the decryption key. Of course, the best case scenario, you would also have, good backups too. And don't forget cyber insurance. So how to protect your network? Well, essentially, you'll want to get back to the basics. So number one, physical security, which this used to actually be a whole chapter in the CISSP. I'm not sure if it still is, but it's so critical. And with everything going to the cloud, you might not have to worry so much But of course, your cloud provider, I was just doing some Azure training, and they were talking about, we do physical security. Definitely, you don't want somebody to be able to just come in, say you're a smaller company, come in the front door, nobody's there, there's no, badge access. At least, lock the door. You can't just walk right in and, open up and get to your server room. If you can, it's all over, because once you get physical access to a device, it's easily crackable in many different ways. Of course, security awareness training, know before. They've got really good. I've been through several different programs. They've got a great. Of course, after hearing Ira today, he's like, "It's a load of crap, the human firewall." But it's still important. Security awareness is still important. Um, Multi-factor authentication is huge and just vitally important, especially with the cloud. It's more important, than ever. You want to know your network. You need to know what's on your network, because if you have a network device that you don't know about that's on your network, that can be easily compromised. Hosts. So one of the things that Red Seal does is it will actually do a discovery of your network. And there isn't one deployment that I have worked on since I've been at Red Seal where we haven't found like some sort of device or host, or even subnets that the customer was unaware of on their network. You want to use segmentation. So of course, you want to have, like, for example, your guest network and your regular network. You want to test that segmentation. Um, there was one deployment I was on, and we went, and that's what we did. We tested the guest wireless and the regular, and there was a bug, and Red Seal was actually able to find this Meraki bug. So you definitely want to make sure you've got things patched where it wasn't actually separate like they thought. Um, I guess I should say it was separate, but the vulnerability scanner was only scanning, either they were only scanning the guest or the regular network. It couldn't distinguish that there was two networks. So only one of them was getting vulnerability scanned. You want to identify your critical assets. So this is something you have to do, your company has to do. And, like I said, like your HR databases, PII data, intellectual property, you want to put them on, high value security segments and monitor those to the level, of the data that's on there. So like Red Seal can not only, it can test your segmentation, but it can also send an alert if there's a change, a firewall change, some sort of configuration error, that suddenly there's access that shouldn't be. So, and this is what I have on the slide. Research from Gartner suggests that through 2020, 99% of firewall breaches will be caused by simple firewall misconfigurations, not flaws. And that's actually what happened in the Capital One hack. Vulnerability management. And one of the things that Red Seal does is they do, and we'll talk about it, vulnerability prioritization with network context. We also will actually check your network devices configurations against standards such as CIS and STIGs automatically, and run reports for you. And then finally, I have to talk about strong cryptography. So you want to make sure you're using the right crypto. So back to the basics, identity and access management. I saw this quote and I was like, wow, I know that multi-factor authentication is important. What I didn't realize is that almost every phishing attack that the CEO of True Digital Security said that he's seen could have been prevented with multi-factor authentication. Strong passwords, you want to use minimum of 12 characters, and you can see that in the chart how important that is. And there are new password policy recommendations by NIST. Some of them I agree with, some of them I don't. They're saying all you need to use are characters and numbers. But if you do use special characters, it makes your password so much stronger. So this is a little bit older chart, but I love seeing just using the upper lowercase. It's really important. And if you're a developer, Argon 2ID is what you need to be using for password hashing. Now, again, what I said is the NIST 863B. Some of the stuff I agree with, some I don't. One of the things they were saying is that you don't need to change your password unless there's a known breach. Well, there's so many breaches happening. I mean, unless you go out to the Have I Been Pawn site weekly and check, I mean, you're really not going to know. Of course, you're going to want to use a separate, individual password for each site, but people don't always do that. According to PCI, you should be changing your password, forcing a change at least once every 90 days. And I would say, at the very least, 180 days. I mean, it pushes it out a little bit, but what they've done studies, and the more often that you force a password change, then people tend to have weaker passwords because they're like, oh, I got to come up with another password. So that was some of the thinking about not forcing a new password. And then the bottom bullet is about that most password cracking programs, if you just have like a dictionary word and you basically take like your O and you make it a 0, or your L and a 1 and you add an exclamation at the end, the cracker programs, they've got it. So they will figure that out. So what you want to do, of course, you want to use a passphrase. So, 2 or more words, or have a sentence or something like that, and then you could do the substitution. Of course, you want to have good auditing. I say all actions taken with root or administrator access. You really don't want root access. And I was reading the CIS benchmarks for cloud, and this, the same goes for cloud. Least privilege and the audit logs and your multi-factor authentication. I mean, those are like a bulk. That right there is a bulk of your cloud security. So you want to know what's on your network. So asset management and discovery. You want to know, of course, your hardware, your software. You're going to have like ServiceNow. You're also going to have these discovery like Axonius, which also will look at ephemeral devices, virtual devices, and a product like REvil that's going to find these devices, these hosts on your network that you don't know about, because these are the devices that can be compromised. These are the ones that will show up on the census.io and you didn't know RDP was open and port 8080 because somebody was testing something and they just threw it on the network, and suddenly your network is at risk because there's this open port unauthorized protocol vulnerability. And I have down there Capital One as being 80 million, but it's really projected to be more around like 2 billion when lawsuits and everything gets said and done. And even Equifax, they're still getting sued. They had a lawsuit just earlier this year, and they went back and they're just looking at their security policy and saying lack of due diligence, what they weren't doing, and suing them. And you don't want to be that company. At least you want to be like, okay, this happened, but we have a security policy, where they can't come back in and sue you even more. So this shows you one of the really powerful things about red seals, where you can actually prioritize host vulnerabilities based on network context. So it's going to take into account what are these devices that are external on your network? What are the critical assets? Now, typically what you would do is you would remediate based on the CVSS score. So it would be, CVSS 9, we got to do these devices first, but that's not necessarily, what you should be patching first, because I mean, of course, there's so many vulnerabilities to keep up with these, it's really hard. So what Red Seal will do is once you've deployed it and modeled your network, it will take into account, hey, the criticality of the asset, and pull, by pulling all of that in, suddenly the CVSS4 is actually more important than any of the other ones because it's a critical asset. And so, this is where you bring in the network context. Now, I wanted to talk about this. This just came out, the China 25, and you can just, NSA publishes top 25 exploits, and you can go and find these that they're seeing, that are being exploited on a regular basis by at the nation state levels, and specifically China. So I pulled, these are like, I mean, there's so many remote code executable with no authentication or low. And I pulled these because I've started a threat team at Red Seal where we'll actually look at the latest, um, flaws and everything, and then how Red Seal can defend. And so I wanted to pull this for everybody because it's so bad right now. I mean, nobody is not, it's kind of like all the big ones are on here. You've got Cisco, Palo Alto, Windows. It's really bad. And the, and actually, and I think I mentioned this, the ransomware attack on the German hospital, that was actually a compromise of the very first one that's up there, the Citrix NetScaler. And there was an alert put out by the government in around January, February timeframe where they were talking about this at that time. And so it hadn't been patched in September at that hospital. And so that's how they were able to get in. So you definitely want to make sure your boundary devices are getting patched. Now, once you have Red Seal deployed, then it will actually model your network. And so now you can see your network, and the power of that is, well, first off, like at the bottom, you can see, it's going to tell you, hey, you know what, these particular hosts are directly attackable. Now, what you have is the red box at the top is the internet, and then most of the devices are going to your DMZ, which is the way it's supposed to be. But there's this one device over here in my data center that there are, basically two different paths directly to it. Now that device could then be leapfrogged, and they, can get into your high value critical assets. So this is like really one of the powerful things of understanding your network and being able to run these queries. And I have been on deployments where we have found devices such as that, and they were like, what? I can't believe this, Another thing that you can do is test your changes, your network changes, before you actually make them. And this will tell you, so the person that's actually approving the change can go and query this, and it says, okay, I'm not going to be, putting my network at risk basically with adding this new access. So this is another way to keep your network safe. And I talked about network segmentation. We have PCI and NERC out of the box compliance, and segmentation testing. And then you can set up your own custom policies, and then you can test them. And if there's a change and suddenly there is access when there shouldn't be, you'll get an alert. This is our risk management. We'll actually give you a digital resilience score of your network. And, it's essentially an ongoing risk assessment, continual compliance, and you will hear this in the new PCI 4 that's coming out. There's a real move towards continual compliance so that you are, constantly doing this risk assessment on your network. And then at the bottom is the top 10 vulnerabilities based on, that's including the network context, which is what's so critical right now. So I had to add this again, the strong cryptography. I went out to the OpenSSL site. 1.1.1H is now available, and you don't want to be using, old crypto. A lot of people, they just don't think about it, and they're still using whatever 0.98 OpenSSL module. A lot of people, they just don't think about the crypto. And so it's another thing that you want to check out, make sure your stuff's up to date. You're using TLS 1.1 is okay, but it's not recommended. You want to be using at least version 1.2. Version 1.3 is great. There's a lot of security in it, but some of the standards haven't caught up yet. I know like Common Criteria doesn't have 1.3 yet from when I just checked like in the last month or two. HMAC SHA-1 and above is good. SHA-2 and above is good. And again, the Crypto Done Right site, cryptodoneright.org, is a great site to go and see, hey, what's okay for FIPS, what's okay for Common Criteria. There's a really good graphic on there. And whenever I see something change, I'll email and let them know so they get it updated. So do we have any questions? You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'm going to end the show. And let me see here. Okay. All right. Oh gosh, did you guys not get the shoot. Did you guys not get to see the slides?
I actually didn't get to see the slides.
Oh no. Oh gosh.
It's
I'm
okay.
so sorry.
I'm not sure if you can share them or not, but if you could,
Oh yeah. No, that's fine. Yeah.
uh,
Oh gosh. Yeah. So you want me to so to make them so they're downloadable?
yeah, if you have a link that you can share, or you can pass them along to me, and I'll create a shareable link.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Oh, I feel so bad about that. Okay. Yeah, you should have said something. I'm bad.
It's okay. It's okay. We
All
were
right.
trying to get your attention, but we weren't trying to
I
take you
know.
away from the presentation.
Oh, it's so hard. Yeah, it's so hard once I start sharing because my whole screen is like, okay.
Yeah, it's perfectly
Yeah.
fine. Perfectly fine.
All right. I'm going to do that. Okay. Yes. I will send those over. Yeah.
And there was a tool, another question earlier. There was a tool that was mentioned. I can't recall the name of it. And let me see, who was it from? I think Melrad asked a question. There was a tool that you were referring to earlier.
Okay.
I can't recall the name of it. If you can clarify that for us, and if you have a link for it, or I can pull up a link, we can share it with
Yeah,
everybody.
was that the census.io?
Let's see if Mr. Melrad is there.
That was one of them.
Yeah, census.io.
Yeah. And I'm gonna, if you give me your email, I will send this over.
Okay, let me see. And I'm going to send this to you. Let me just. Hey, she didn't
Yeah.
have her slides on.
Sorry again to everybody. But yeah, I'll definitely send the slides. I
Hey,
know.
Debra, are you still there?
Yeah.
Hey, I just talked to our guys over here, and if you uploaded them, we'll actually share them for you. It'll be on.
Okay, I did. It's just I've got new. I mean, I've been updating them like even yesterday. So I do have them, but if they want the latest, I can email it to you.
Okay. Yeah, if you email it to me, and I think I sent you my information a few moments ago, then I'll go ahead and I'll get them
Yeah.
uploaded to our guys, and that way we can get them shared out.
Okay. Yeah. Now, where did you get your where did you send me your email?
So if you look in the chat box where it says you should have a
Oh,
chat from me.
okay. Let's see. Ah, okay. Yeah. Again, I apologize to everybody. I feel like I should go over it again really quick. I'm like, I'm really bad.
I mean,
I don't know what I was. Okay, let's
you
see
kind of have
here.
time.
I can. Let me see here. Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. I want to get everybody the.
I think there's a couple people that actually want you to.
Yeah. No, I can. Okay, here you go. Yeah. Uh, yeah, next time, hopefully I won't do that again, but
Perfectly
just
fine.
say, Deborah, I don't see anything.
I didn't want
Okay.
to interrupt your presentation at all. So I pinged you. You didn't respond. It was perfectly fine. Like you were doing what you do. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm going to do for everybody, because I'm like, okay. So now can you see it? That's first thing.
I can see that you're on a Mac.
Okay, let me see here. I'm going to go back and make sure. I want to, let's try this again.
Yeah, Mac and Ballet. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, there we go.
And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I can go through this and show you the, here you go. Disruptionware.
They said the reason why you couldn't upload the slides was because of a Mac.
Ah, okay. So here you go. The biggest story, the biggest hack. And $10 million for Garmin. This is Universal Health Services. This was the Citrix, the German hospital. So we've got the disruptionware, email, phishing, propagates through your network using RDP and SMB. So RDP is now the #1 attack vector. Now this is the one you may have wanted, the census.io, where you can go and you can do their free searches and stuff. So I go and I talk about, yeah, I had like do not disturb on my computer. I was like, okay, so SMB. And now this is what they're doing. So after they go out and do the search, they're attacking the network, exfiltrating the data. Well, thank you so much, saying I did great without the slides. So, but yeah, I'll give all this great information to you. I've been updating this even like today because there's just so much going on right now. So, but yeah, thanks. And definitely, look me up on LinkedIn if you, have any questions. Um, and this is my back to the basics. Yeah, and this is really good showing the remediation if you're just doing the CVSS. Let's see. And the other thing I wanted to say about Red Seal is we'll do like free threat hunting workshops. So if your company's interested, then and here's a list of all the flaws. So in that's one way to get to know, to actually get to play around with it. We actually have a test drive too that you can do online. And so if you get in touch with me, then you can try that also. So, but yeah, again, so sorry. And we'll get you the latest slides. So, okay. Well, thanks everybody.